Hello there everyone and welcome to a brand new show from TechRadar that's aptly called the TechRadar Show. We're going to be touching on a bit of everything actually in this series.
Well, sort of, yeah. I mean, I think horticulture's out of the question, but generally technology.
Yeah. So today we're kicking off with the iWatch actually.
Yes.
Apple's iWatch. I mean, do we actually think it exists? I think is the first question.
Well, clearly it exists in some laboratory somewhere in the deepest, darkest mountain that Apple owns. But in terms of when it's going to come to the market, I think it's imminent, and we've seen enough rumours and enough speculation to understand there's generally kind of this tipping point when that's actually happening. And I think we've had that for a couple of months. I think iWatch is definitely on the cards, and I think it's going to be pretty special.
I feel like it's been pushed back and back. I feel like, because we heard about it a long time ago, and I get the impression that Apple probably initially were looking to launch it maybe last year, and then I feel like, because they were obviously watching the market very closely and a lot of other people's mistakes, and I feel like it's being pushed back. And this Nike stuff recently with the fuel ban, I find quite interesting. Yeah. Like, I mean, we talked about this before when we did the show on the smartwatches, and we kind of almost semi-predicted this would happen, that they'd sort of do something with Nike. Yeah. And it seems obvious, but then it makes me wonder well, okay, maybe they're just doing a fitness band and it's not going to be so much a smartwatch in the same way as like the Samsung Gear.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think, in terms of pushing it back, I don't think it's pushed back and back. I think there was an opportunity to launch something last year, and I think quite clearly Apple got it right. It would be the wrong time. Apple works in product cycles. If the first half of the year now is traditionally kept away from hardware. That's very much in the second half. So you've got September for iPhones, iPads latter half in November time. Sorry. So then, if you put a smartwatch in, then that's the perfect time. It's really good to launch it with a device, because obviously Apple isn't going to open this up for other devices. It's going to be just Apple. So you have that, and then when the new iPad launches a couple of months later, they can say, well, this is how the iWatch works with it. This is the really clever way it's integrated, and so it helps. The two kind of cycle against each other. The iWatch promotes sales of the iPhone, and vice versa, and then the iPad again works both ways. So I think that's going to be really exciting, and I think, in terms of what it's going to be, I think that we've got this idea of silos, that there's a smart watch and there's a fitness band, and we're starting to see blurred lines with LG and Samsung with the Gear Fit and LG's version, and I think that Apple will just find another way of fitting between the two. I think notifications are what people class as a smartwatch, and a fitness band with a screen can definitely do that. So I think it's the market is there. It's primed and ready, and I think that everyone's sort of dabbling around. And the reason, the fact that Samsung was so quick to launch a second iteration shows that it was worried that the first Galaxy Gear wasn't good enough, and if that's all it had in the market when Apple launched, it would need something better. So I think I think Apple is probably the company to help galvanise the whole industry. Yeah. And I think we've definitely seen a lot about that happening, in the iOS 8 leaks that we've seen coming through forward.
Yeah, the iOS 8 leaks are interesting, because if Apple is going to show iOS 8 at WWDC, which I'm sure it's going to, and it has all the HealthBook stuff on there, but people are going to be asking questions like, okay, we've got the HealthBook stuff, what are they going to tell us about the sensors? Where are the sensors going to be? Surely the sensors are going to be in the iWatch or on the iPhone 6. Yeah. I mean, there are some now on the iPhone as it is, but I feel like it's going to be a bit awkward if Apple can announce all the HealthBook stuff and not talk about the iWatch or the iBand. It seems I don't know. It seems like it's going to be odd for me.
Well, Apple's the master at obfuscating the things that are coming forward. But it can be a simple thing about like third-party accessories or extra sensors that can connect into this APIs. It's very good at kind of waving its hands and saying, this is coming, don't worry. And then people quite easily will extrapolate that to mean probably an iPhone 6 and iWatch would make perfect sense. Yeah. And so, us experts will work it out.
Well, some of the leaks as well, I mean, whether they're true or not, but they've got a watch utility app that's appeared with HealthBook. And that's kind of interesting. I don't know, I think Apple would be very silly to put that out, knowing that, iOS 7 leaked ahead, and I think Apple knows that iOS 8 is probably going to leak at some point. And if they're especially not going to put anything about the iWatch into it, I think they'd be very silly to put that on, knowing all too well that it could leak out. So to me, it sets an alarm bell saying I think it's quite possibly fake. Yeah. But what do you think? I don't.
Well, if it's either you're right. It's either fake. And that's simply because there's an appetite for this kind of stuff going through, so people want to create this kind of stuff. Or it's just, in the early development of iOS 8 or any software, there's always going to be all the facets of it, and the one that we'd finally see would be stripped of that, but it would have the ability to enable it later on. Yeah. And so if that leak it turns out to be true, then that's probably what it would be. It would be the fact that the watch utility development phase was shown off and someone got wind of that. But it wouldn't turn up in iOS 8 and WWDC.
Yeah.
Unless the hardware comes a bit early, like you said, and they do it for developers to get their hands on. But it would seem really out of cycle for Apple to launch hardware and not let you get your hands on it.
I wonder when it comes to things like apps, will we see apps on the band? And if so, will there be a kind of awkward period when it's launched and there's not that much going on with the band, apart from like some fitness stuff with the health book potentially? And it made me wonder if maybe Apple would have been better announcing it at WWDC and giving developers time to create apps, so when they launch it alongside the iPhone 6, then it's kind of ready to go. You know?
Well, I don't think developers need. I don't think it needs to come with pre-developed apps. I don't think that's the kind of the thrust of it, really. I think that's an added bonus. It's kind of the same way that the iPhone launched. Took 2 years to get apps.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a thing back then. I know obviously we're in a different world now where apps are everywhere, but I think the watch needs to be able to anything Apple announces needs to be able to survive on its own just out of the box. It doesn't need anyone else to come and help it. Is the way that Apple always works. So I think, and especially with Android Watch stuff coming out this year, it's going to be a real battleground. And I think Apple is choosing the right time to probably get into it. If you've ever seen Sonic the Hedgehog, you'll notice he had nothing on apart from shoes. Here's some weird wearables that you can try it yourself.
Forget squinting at diddy little smartwatch screens. The Rufus Cuff packs a full-fat 3-inch screen, 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of onboard storage, access to Google Now and Siri, and more besides. It's not exactly subtle, but if you want the full smartphone experience on your wrist, you won't get much better than this. And even better, it reminds us of the Pip-Boy from Fallout 3. If you ever felt your smartphone screen wasn't big enough, you could always stick it 2 inches from your face. The Vraze is all about the affordable VR experience and is actually a pretty cool concept. It's essentially just a headband you strap to your face that acts as a vessel for your smartphone. Just slide in a handset and boot up the app, and you've got yourself a nifty little DIY 3D headset. These high-tech foot warmers combine textile sensors with an ankle bracelet to send data on your running performance to your smartphone. You'd probably have to be really into pounding the pavement for these to be a tempting proposition though. They'll set you back a hefty $149. The Aurora headband promises to induce lucid dreaming with lights and sound, and also includes a smart alarm that will wake you up at the optimal phase of your sleep cycle. We're a bit wary of this one though. The Lucy headband offered something very similar in 2013, then mysteriously went AWOL. This time we want to see our dreams become a reality, or something like that at least. These wearable cat ears give you the power to act out your weirdest feline fantasies, using your brainwaves to move the ears depending on your mood, which include focused, in the zone and relaxed. We're pretty sure humans have a more comprehensive range of emotions than this, but whatever.
So let's move away from wearables for a little bit and get you back on gaming spotlight, because I know that you're sad that your little piece has gone to the big video game store in the sky.
Just went for quality and you went for quantity, that's all.
Yeah, we went for plus both. But anyway, let's move off from that. No, let's have gaming spotlight. I'm keeping it here for you, so you've got a little seat of rage. You can get a little angry about things. And
I think as Perfect Dark is turning 14 this month, the big 14. I thought we should have a fight-off. I know you're more of a GoldenEye fan. I'm more of a Perfect Dark fan. I thought we should hash it out.
True fact. Plus GoldenEye has got a watch. It's got a laser. That's a wearable synergy.
Perfect Dark's got wearables and loads of cool tech because it's in the future.
Yeah, alien tech. It's cheating.
Yeah.
I think away from the shouting and the screaming about which game was better, I think critically you can look at each game and say that there were really good strengths and weaknesses in each one. I think GoldenEye, the strength was the fact that it got it right. It worked out, how you could play out from the start to the end. It was a perfect one-player game and it was a perfect multiplayer game. It gave you things you recognised and it built on it. And we said about the fact that movie tie-in was its strength. It belied the fact it was a movie tie-in. And how many games can you think of that had a movie tie-in and were just awful simply because they got the license and it cost so much money? Well, that was it go. I mean, E.T. Think about that. So it's just. So I just think GoldenEye really was just the fluidity and the succinct nature of it. It was just simplistic, and it worked really well. It's like every so often you hit that high point of something that just gets to what it's supposed to do and it does it perfectly, and that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, and I guess GoldenEye as well was important for the first person on console because like people had you could have Wolfenstein and Doom on the PC, but they hadn't really got a mainstream way of playing FPS games. So GoldenEye was, admittedly the first in that, but. I honestly think Perfect Dark's a better game. I think it was an experience created from scratch. Yes, it was built on the GoldenEye engine.
Yeah.
But you're right about the movie tie and stuff. I think what I loved about Perfect Dark was it created its own story with some, beautiful like Blade Runner style influences and had its whole own world, which was the exciting thing for me. On top of the awesome multiplayer, which they took the stuff from GoldenEye and they saw what worked and what didn't work. I mean, most of it worked.
Yeah, and for me, I think that the fact is that there's lots of things in Perfect Dark I really wish you'd have seen in GoldenEye. Like the firing ranges, they were a little mini game in themselves that you could last for ages. And I just feel like there's a lot of stuff in that worked. It needed that kind of, the theatrics of GoldenEye to really work well. I wanted to see, you want to see James Bond trying out the different guns and working out how they all worked in that firing range and to really get into grips. And that would have been a really good way to help with the training, because GoldenEye, you did just get dropped into it. But like I said, most people had seen the film, understood what was going on, and it's the fact that it just stands the test of time to this today. It was re-released, not very well, I don't think. What I really wanted was that game again, but on a PlayStation. I didn't want to see the same thing over and over. But realistically, there was enough appetite to bring it around again. I don't think we're going to see Perfect Dark 2 rebooted.
The great thing was when both of those games were kind of channeled into Time Splitters. Time Splitters 2 especially was the pinnacle of that series. But the sad thing is that was kind of where it ended, Time Splitters Future Perfect, and that was it. That was sort of the end of the story, really. Yeah. And it's a shame. And I think there's a lot of things that developers of first-person shooter games could take from those games now, but they don't, because the beast has changed now. It's very much about the Call of Duty model is very different. It's more of a sport. It's very fast-paced. It's not about the fun. It's not about hiding in cubicles with rocket launchers anymore.
No one will get angry about GoldenEye the same way they get angry about today's FPS.
No, because it was just fun.
Yeah.
It was just fun, and it was developers willing to have fun. And when one of my favourite interviews I've ever done was with Steve Ellis, who worked on GoldenEye, and he said the same thing. Developers these days, they're just not willing, or publishers not willing to kind of invest in just having fun anymore. Like it's a.
What they do is like it's the real thrust of it. It's like it's a stupid game. You're having stupid fun.
Exactly.
And that GoldenEye for me and Perfect Dark combined all of it really. You could do things that really not. You could mine a whole room so no one could get out. It was that kind of.
Yeah. They didn't take themselves too seriously, and that was the brilliance of them.
So that's it for the first version of the TechRadar Show. It's been a blast, Hugh.
It's been really good. I've actually enjoyed working with you for once. Which is nice, yeah. The phone show and gaming spotlight coming together as one. It's beautiful, really.
But the phone show will be back next week. So if you're worried that this is a bit below par, John McCann will be back next week for that. But anyway, TechRadar Show. We hope you enjoyed it, and hit us up in the comments. We want to get you really involved, really see what you think of the new format. I think it works.
I think it works too. Yeah. So just let us know what you think. Let us know what you'd like to see, and we'll see you again soon.
Sonic!